Okay guys, hi, Dr. Sean here again. We're coming on the heels of our last video that we did in our mailbag segment on an individual that had shingles out of Atlanta. This time we're asked a follow-up question about this. This is a person that is suffering from what they call a Ramsay Hunt Syndrome. Now all it is, it's a cute way of giving it a cute name, it's just shingles again. But it's shingles in this case, it's affected the facial nerve. Now the facial nerve is really important because it controls all the muscles of the face. It's how you smile and frown. So it's all these things that do that. Now I was always, the ways I teach this and how I was taught it is that you take your arm and you lay it alongside your head, and where your fingers hit, that's how the branches of the facial nerve work. So they control all of these things. Now you can change it and rule it out from a stroke, because a stroke will look similar, but it will involve an arm, a leg, a side of a body. Bells Palsy will not, and that's what this question was all about. This individual has had Bell's palsy multiple times, recurring over a 12-year period. That's not normal. So when you see this, you get shingles, you get Bell's palsy, once it's done. But in this case, it's recurring. So what does that tell us? It's that they've not found the cause. You've not removed the stress that's affecting the body. And so this little broken piece just stays broken. It stays irritated. It's never really healing. So we have to go back and figure out, well, what do you do then? Now, I see this a lot in practice, and I've dealt with Bell's palsy many, many times over the years. How do we treat it? First thing, you always examine. You look at the patient if you can. You try to examine and look for those root causes. The next thing you do is we do a 24-hour urine test in our practice. The urine tells me where the body is struggling. What are you holding on to? What are you throwing away? It gives me some idea that if she's eating a good diet or they're eating a good diet, is the body able to utilize that food, or is it just throwing it all out? So you never get parts to heal. Because as we talked about in our first video, we need fat. Fat is so important for nerves to put that protective coating back on there. And that's really what causes this palsy. So we look at that and we say, okay, can we get the parts to repair, to grow? The next thing we look at then is the anatomy. This is really important. You're looking at Bell's palsy. The anatomy, you say, okay, the facial nerve, it runs around through the ear area and it splits and runs all through here. So anywhere where things can get pinched, anywhere there's a hinge joint, you want to focus on those. The jaw is a big hinge joint. Even the ossicles inside the ear, the little tiny bones in there, they could be a problem for you. You want to look at maybe the sinus cavity, because it expands just slightly when you're breathing, or when it gets infected, it can get inflamed. The jaw, again, as we mentioned, goes right here to the upper part of the neck. They almost share an area up in there. So you have to look at the anatomy and focus on balancing that, putting it back where it belongs. The next thing you do after that then is you nourish, nourish, nourish. Now we mentioned fats already, but we use a product, and I use this on every Bell's palsy patient I've ever had because I've never not found it. It's called Nasal. What's nice about this particular formula, it was invented to help relieve sinus pressure. When your pressure in your sinuses, they're real stuffy, they're congested, they're swollen. You blow your nose, but nothing comes out. That's a good indication that it's not an infection, it's just inflamed. The different herbs and the plants that are in the nasal formula are designed to take that inflammation down. There's a lot of what they call antispasmodics in there. There's spasmolytics that take all that spasm out of tissue, out of muscle. So it helps a lot when you have palsy, paralysis type things going on one side of the body. The last thing I like to do after I've done everything else, I love to do acupuncture. I was fortunate enough in my career to be mentored by the world's leading authority on stroke and paralysis recovery. I have watched this older Chinese gentleman perform miracles on everyone from Bell's palsy to stroke to Lou Gehrig's to anything else you can imagine that's affecting structure and function. It's a beautiful thing to watch. So I was fortunate that I got mentored by him. So this is what we do. We implement that style of acupuncture. Not all of them are the same. You have to have that specific one. So we implement that style of acupuncture. We do an exam. We do a urine test. We make sure we get rid of any kind of mechanical obstruction that could be damaging that nerve, and you nourish, nourish, nourish. And if you do that, your Bell's palsy will go away.